This video is inspired by fellow loomer Bonnie. She did this technique on a loom to create like a pig's tail, so like a curly tail, and you can kind of see, I did one here so you could see, we would obviously have less of that, but the technique we do actually kind of makes it do a little curl on its own. You hold it sideways so you can kind of see. So I'm going to show you how to do that, so if you want to use it as like a pig's tail on a stuffed animal you might do, or what Bonnie and I were talking about is how we could do this kind of curliness at the end of on the bottom of a cowl or a scarf. But what you need to do is you got to work each peg separately, which means because I've gotten this down where I want it, I'm going to cut a tail of this, and then I'm going to move on to the next, and I'm going to leave this little straggle here available for the next time I would go around to attach it. So just leave that there and work that in later to the project. So you do your slip knot. It's a very simple process. You place it on the peg. Now with this part you have here, the tail that we usually put on the inside, kind of hold on to that if you can, just to keep it in place. Now rewrap the peg that you have it on so that there's 3 loops. And take the bottom loop over the top. Give that string a little tug if you need to. And again, you're just going to keep rewrapping that peg and doing what I like to call the tight stitch, I believe that's what it's called, over and over again. So hold it for that string for a little while and just keep working the tight stitch one peg at a time. Again, different looms you use, like the all-in-one loom. This is a Nifty Knitter flower loom. Any of those that let's try that again. When you use a different peg, it's obviously going to give you a little bit different effect. The pegs on a different loom, I mean. So we're just going to keep working the one peg, kind of keeping an eye on our string there, until we get the curliness the way we want. So you could decide, you could do up so many, keep track with like a row counter of how many you've done, so that you can keep it consistent through if you want, or you can alternate them. So like I said, if you were going to do this on the bottom of the scarf, or like a cowl, or some other method, I'll show you how we would connect them. So as I said, I'm just working the one peg at a time, and if you look towards the back, that one peg we've just been doing that one stitch on has already gotten the start of like a curly cue. So, and we also have the strand, like I said, from the one before that we have to worry about when it comes time. So we've got one here, and we're starting this one here. So when I'm ready to, if I need to, I would have to cut and move on to the next one. But I'm going to do this one a little bit more, and then I'll show you how you can easily attach them together, again, if you want to do this at the bottom of a project. Now what's also cool, because you have the little tails at the end, is you can actually work those to your advantage a little bit. These tails that we have at the end, because people be like, well, they're ugly, you'd have to hide them in. I would say put a bead on it right up to there, and then put a knot, and that bead can be like part of your decoration. So say you keep going, and as you can tell, it's starting to do its little curl thing. Again, do this on a different loom, like the all-in-one loom, and that with the gauge smaller, and you would probably see it curl even more because of the spacing of when you're wrapping. But this just gives you an idea a little bigger of how it would look like. And it may not look like it's curling much, but it is something you can kind of manipulate a little bit too. So if you work each peg, and you've done that one as many times as you want, you're going to cut your tail to move on to the next one. But say you're already done and you want to join them, then just simply do like you would normally do. Like if this was the bottom of a scarf, I went around, I did all the pegs that I wanted, I cut my tails, then you would just place this right back on the first loop you had, hiding the tail there because you can hide it later, and then you would just join them. And you could take the 2 loops that you had over top of the one, and you can just, lock them in together. Now those straggles we had, you could hold them and have them be part of it, or again, they could come into as part of your design. You can trim them down, you could hide them in like you would normally do a hat, but that kind of joins them together, which would make it a really cool effect at the bottom of like a the bottom of a project if you have these little curly cues. Because again, if you work it on a different loom, which I was going to look and see, if we worked it on a different loom, similar to the all-in-one loom, if we worked it on this loom, it's going to work up differently than it did on this one. So let me just show you that. So say this was more like a nifty knitted loom if you're using it. But if you have something similar to the all-in-one, this is the actual sock loom too, but it has around the same gauge as the all-in-one. We could do the same process on that as well. Excuse me, once I find where my yarn went. Okay. Okay. So we have our yarn. We could do the same process on the all-in-one loom as well. So keep that in mind. And because the all-in-one loom is smaller gauge, it's probably going to even do a better kind of curly cue. Again, just picking a spot to place it on. Hold that in place. And then again, just rewrap that loom or the peg so that there's 3 loops. Take the bottom loop over the top. And again, keep working it. Like that. Again, trying to hold on to your straggle down there. Oops. That's all it is, doing the tight stitch of 1/2 over and over again on one peg. And again, because this gauge is smaller, it should create a tighter curly cue. So if we look, even after a little amount of time, we're getting that curly cue starting to happen, and it's actually a little tighter than the other one, if you can see that. So that's actually what's really cool, is you can do that, again, cutting it off and working each peg at a time, and it could be a bottom of a scarf, like almost like a different type of tassel. And again, like I said, you could take the tail end of it, this part, and you could put some beads on it if you want, have that hanging down. And again, perfect for the bottom of like a cowl for a cool design, which I'm sure I'm going to be doing, so you'll probably see patterns like that up over the next few weeks or so. But again, it's just a great little addition to make a little curly cue that you can use as a pig's tail on a different project, or that can be used on the bottom of a project such as a scarf or a cowl or even a sweater or a vest, something like that. And again, I want to thank Bonnie for giving me the idea and allowing me to like videotape her technique there. So please, and I'll put a link to her blog, because she actually has some loom knitting patterns as well. So you'll check the info box of this video for links to my blog, which is the Simply Intertwined one, and to Bonnie's, which is Looming Exclusive Designs. So check us both out. We both have patterns on there for free, and I hope you enjoy.